I'm an alcoholic. And then labor market. So I'm really curious, like I'm assuming like, okay, we're accepting that this problem is real based off the statistics. Men are falling behind in comparison to women, and then also objectively they might be falling behind.
In some cases, yeah.
In some cases. If men created these systems,
Yeah.
why are they failing within the systems they created?
Yeah, so the labor market's a great example of an area where it's not just a relative shift, it's an absolute shift. So most American men today earn less than most American men did in 1979.
And is the same true for women?
Absolutely not. Women today earn more than women did in 1979.
So it's not a class issue. This is a gender.
But now, except I said most American men. Right? So you're exactly right to go to class, because what that means is the median American man, and actually about 60% of American men today are worse off adjusting for inflation than 60% of American men were back in 1979. Men at the top have seen pay increases.
I'm sure.
So men at the top are better off than men at the top were back in 79. Women have seen increases across the board, but especially at the top. So what we've seen is this growth in economic inequality, with both men and women at the top seeing big increases in their earnings, women lower down seeing increases in their earnings, and men lower down seeing falling earnings. So if American men were a country, that country would be a little bit poorer today than it was almost 50 years ago.
Wild.
That's an important fact. And so, because it's not just relative, right? Look, any increase by a previously disadvantaged group is going to mean that the previously advantaged group are relatively losing ground.
Right.
That's called progress.
Right.
That's called equality.
Right.
And so it doesn't trouble me at all that we're seeing the relative economic position of men and women becoming more equal. Like 40% of women now earn more than the typical man. Right.
Interesting.
Think about the distributions overlapping there.
Right.
It used to be 13%.
Right.
So previously, if I wanted to know how much you earned, knowing whether you're a man or a woman was a really good first question to ask. That would tell me a lot about how much you were earning. Now it's not a very good question. I need to know your education, your class, your geography, and so on too.
Okay.
So what you've got is these different inequalities pulling in different directions. You've got economic inequality growing, class inequality growing. That was what I wrote about before. You've got racial inequality either growing or pretty stuck.
Right.
And then you've got gender equality getting much better. So to put a fine point on it, white women now earn much more than black men. It didn't in 79.
Sure.
So white women have overtaken black men in terms of earnings and blown right past them, and are now earning a lot more. So what that means is you have to think, there's this phrase now called intersectionality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so Kimberly Crenshaw actually invented the phrase, and what it means is just you have to look at different dimensions at the same time. And I think especially with gender now, you have to look at gender and race and class. It's much harder now to just say women are worse off.
Got it.
Because for a lot of women, that's not true. It is still true for some women, but there are now also quite a lot of men who are in trouble too.
Got it. Okay. So now we see education, labor force, men are falling behind. Can you really pinpoint the why? Like, I'm a kid in school. I'm in middle school. I'm however old I am when I'm in 6th grade. What is happening to me that is making me feel so disenfranchised with this academic process?
Yeah, so I think that the answers are going to be different for education and work, but of course they're also going to be related.
Right.
If you come out of the education system having not done very well, you're going to struggle in the labor market.
Exactly.
And that's much more true today than it was before. So let's do employment first, which is the sorts of jobs that, let's say, your dad could do. Having graduated from high school, he could go and get a pretty good factory job and earn a decent living. That's not true anymore. The kinds of jobs that men used to be able to do and succeed really just because they were men, they've gone. They've gone because of free trade. They've gone because of automation. Those physical jobs have just massively declined. And so what that means is that for men as well as for women, getting more educated is increasingly important to having good employment.
Right.
So that relationship between education and employment is getting stronger. So then to come back, well, why aren't boys and men doing as well in education? Certainly nothing like as well as women are, girls and women are, but in some cases, not just not doing very well, just period. I think the reason for that is because the education system is not very male friendly.
Okay.
It's actually more female friendly.
Okay.
And that's a weird thing to say because the education system was invented by men. So the point you made earlier, men created these systems.
Exactly. It's like the Prussian schooling model or whatever, right? Like that's what it's all based off of.
Yeah. So men invented the education system, put in place the education system. So how can it possibly not be male friendly? And the answer is accidentally.
Okay.
You know, it wasn't deliberate, but the way education is structured is that it rewards certain kinds of skills: the ability to pay attention, the ability to stay on task, the ability, if I may risk saying this, to finish a 200-page book.
It's so many pages. Like, is there no cliff notes or something?
There is actually. There's a yard.
Okay, excellent. Do you have an audiobook?
Apparently, yeah.
You need an audiobook too.
I've done it.
Did you read it?
I did. And
okay, good.
Slight digression is that I had to audition to do it, and I said, but I talk about myself and being British. So if I don't get the part of playing myself, first of all, that's going to create all kinds of existential angst for me, which is like I auditioned for the part of me, and failed.
Orlando Bloom got it.
Who will you get? Who will you get to read it if I don't read it? And they said, "We'll just find some unemployed British actor."
That's so funny. The best actors, though, be honest, right?
What, the unemployed British one?
So any British actor I trust.
So I'm delighted to announce that the audition went well.
Okay.
I got the part of me.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a tough job.
And I read my own book, so it is out on audio. So yes, if you can't bear the pages, then And we were talking earlier about the fact that podcasts, audiobooks are in some ways a return to an older way of.
That's what I see.
And actually, look, I will say that I will see in my own some of my sons more than others. Actually, that the old style of learning just seems redundant to them. I mean, one of my kids would say to me, "Why would you read a book when you can listen to a podcast or watch something on YouTube? Like, literally, what is the point? If you can get most of the information, say even maybe from this conversation that's in the book, why would you go and buy the book? By the way, go and buy the book.
Oh, or just listen to this. You know what I mean? Screw the book.
Or buy the book. Buy the book. I have 2 kids in college. Please buy the book.
Okay, yeah, buy the book.
Buy the book. So anyway, I've completely forgotten. What were we talking about?
In terms of boys being in school and being able to finish books and finish thoughts.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
See, now you've proved me wrong, of course.
There we go.
I forgot.
I'm a sociologist, okay? Don't forget that.
Yeah, PhD in sociology. Right? So there's certain things that the education system rewards, like, as I say, stay on task, even if it's intrinsically a bit dull, worry about your future, think about your GPA, etc. So preparedness skills. All those skills develop earlier in girls than in boys.
Right.
It's just a fact. So for all the debates about brain science and female and male brains and all that stuff, what there's no question about is that girls develop a bit earlier than boys on average. So a 16-year-old girl, her brain has developed more than a 16-year-old boy on average.
Right.
And specifically in this area of the brain, which is about the bit that allows you to sit through an incredibly boring chemistry class and still pay attention, and then go home and do your incredibly boring chemistry homework and turn it in, all the things that just are hard. They turn out to be harder for boys.
When does that level out roughly? What age?
About 25, 26.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
You made it.
Take that, ladies. I'm catching up. All right? I'm gaining on you.
Well, or this is as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Downhill from here.
It's about mid-20s. And so, look, one question people then ask, okay, if the education system was always structured to favor girls a bit more than boys because they develop these skills earlier, and at this crucial point, like 16 is a really important age in the education system, then why didn't we see it before?
Yeah, this seems so dumb.
Why are we only seeing this now? And the answer is because of sexism. Girls weren't encouraged to go to college. Girls weren't encouraged to pursue an academic career. And so actually, even back in the 60s, girls were doing slightly better in high school than boys. Slightly. In the 60s.
So just off rip, you put girls in school, they're just beating boys.
Correct. We just took the brakes off. Or another way to put it is, we've essentially, by leveling the playing field in education, by creating opportunities and aspirations for girls and women, what we've done is we've exposed the fact that they're better players. They're just naturally better players. And so on a level playing field, they're going to kick our asses. And that's basically what's happening, is that the natural advantages of girls and women in the current education system have only become visible once we took the brakes off and allowed their aspirations and opportunities to flourish. And so essentially what was happening was sexism was keeping a lid on women's educational performance.
And on this problem in general.
Yeah, and then suddenly, boom, we took the lid off. And nobody predicted, by the way, that when we were fighting for gender equality back in the 70s to get more women into education, more women into college, nobody predicted that they would just keep going. No one predicted the overtaking. Everyone was focused on, we need to catch up. We need women and girls to do as well as men.
Which was the right attitude at the time.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I completely support it. But what no one expected was that the line would just keep going.
Right.
And that it wasn't that girls and women would catch up with boys and men, but they would blow right past them and keep going. And so now we're in this new world, which is like, okay, what's going on here? And one thing that's going on is we've just lit a fire for women and girls, which is amazing.
I think that's an interesting point. I think it's important too to say like, hey, this is not, equality is not a zero-sum game.
Correct.
And that women have all of a sudden been put into this academic system and they've excelled.
Yes.
Which is excellent, which is great. Don't even change that at all. Women
Not
are
at
doing
all.
so great.
Not at all.
We just need to make some adjustments to the way that boys are being taught.
Yeah.